Hi besties, welcome back to the channel. I've been so deep into covering this court case that I honestly haven't even had a chance to breathe, let alone keep up with all the gossip that's been swirling around Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift, and the rest of their circle. But there's one rumor that just won't die. It's everywhere in my comments all over Instagram and even across the gossip forums. People are convinced that Blake and Ryan's marriage might be on the brink of collapse. Some are asking if the ongoing legal pressure surrounding Blake's case has started to take a toll on their relationship. Others are wondering if this is the beginning of a separation or even a quiet divorce. Now, I want to make something really clear up front. I don't have any secret inside sources feeding me confidential details about their relationship. I don't have Leslie Sloan or anyone from their PR team on speed dial whispering updates about their marriage. What I do have, though, is what everyone else has: the public statements, the media appearances, the tone shifts, and what we can reasonably interpret from their recent behavior. And lately, there's been plenty to talk about. Ryan has been out doing press for a documentary he produced on the late comedian John Candy, and during interviews, he made a few remarks that definitely raised eyebrows. In one of them, he joked about how if he had a son first, he would have punched down his own manhood so he couldn't have more kids, because as he said, he wouldn't be able to handle raising 4 boys. He reminded everyone that he actually comes from a family of 4 boys himself, and that his mom went through that chaos. But the comment that really started making people talk came when Ryan recalled a story about being in the middle of an event, dressed in a tux, ready to go, when legendary actor Bill Murray finally called him after weeks of dodging communication. Ryan said that when Blake told him it was time to leave, he basically snapped back with, "F you, I'm taking this call." He said it as a joke, but the internet did what it always does. It ran wild. People online took that as a sign that things between Blake and Ryan might not be as picture perfect as they appear. Then, fans started noticing something else. The couple hasn't been showing up together publicly. She's been doing her own events, and he's been attending his premieres solo. That fueled more speculation, blogs, podcasts, Substacks, and Reddit threads claiming that the two are constantly fighting, or that the legal chaos has pushed them to a breaking point. Now, I'm not saying those rumors are true, but I'm also not saying people's curiosity is unfounded. Here's the thing. I genuinely have a hard time believing that Blake and Ryan are falling apart. Why? Because if you think about it, for this situation to really be breaking them down emotionally, they'd have to believe they did something wrong. And I don't think either of them believes that. From everything we've seen, Blake and Ryan both seem completely convinced that they're in the right, that they're victims in this story, not villains. So, if that's their mindset, what would they really be fighting about behind closed doors? My read? I don't think they're having major marital issues. I think Ryan is simply choosing not to talk about Blake because he doesn't want to damage his own public image. He's been managing his brand very carefully, and any comment about Blake or the lawsuit could drag him into controversy he doesn't want. And on the flip side, I think Blake's absence from his red carpets is just as strategic. They're managing optics. They're controlling the PR machine as best they can while this court case unfolds. But to understand this dynamic better, I want to go back to something that was shared with me by Richard Fedek, a photographer who actually had a long and complicated legal history with Ryan and Blake. For context, Fedek once got caught in a massive legal dispute with Ryan years ago. Ryan accused him of stalking him, even claiming that Fedek hit him with a car, accusations that were later thrown out in court. Here's where it gets interesting. Fedek spent years covering both Blake and Ryan through his work, and over that time, he claims to have observed a pattern in their relationship, one that might explain why they are the way they are today. According to Fedek, Ryan has always been deeply controlling, even demeaning, in his dynamic with Blake. He allegedly didn't treat her as an equal, but as someone he had to manage, as if she was part of his brand, not his partner. He reportedly controlled nearly every aspect of their lives, even their careers. There were stories about how the couple had a rule that they would never work on separate projects at the same time, because if they did, they believed it might break their marriage. Ryan was known to show up on her film sets, reportedly watching her every move and allegedly becoming angry whenever she had romantic scenes or male co-stars. That created tension on multiple productions and was seen by some in the industry as disruptive and possessive behavior. Now, none of this is new. These stories have circulated for years. But the difference today is that they're finally being amplified. Fedek described Blake as being very young and impressionable when she met Ryan. She was only 22 while he was in his mid-30s, a 12-year age gap. He said she looked up to him like he was this magnetic, brilliant force, someone she admired, so much that she wanted to model herself after him completely. And that's exactly what she did. Blake began mirroring Ryan's tone, his humor, even his public persona, trying to learn from him, trying to become him, in a sense. She thought that if she could emulate his wit, his control, his style, maybe she could reach his level of success. But over time, what developed between them wasn't just influence, it became strategy. Fedek claimed that Blake learned how to use manipulation in the same way Ryan did, and that the two of them became a team that would work together to craft narratives, even when it meant bending the truth. According to him, they've been known to lie for each other, coordinate public stories, and align their PR moves, presenting themselves as Hollywood's golden couple, even when the truth behind the curtain looked very different. So when you take that history and combine it with the current pressure of Blake's legal battles, you start to see the pattern. It's not necessarily that the marriage is crumbling, it's that the facade is cracking. They've always functioned best when they can control the narrative. But in this case, the courtroom drama, the leaked documents, the missing evidence, all of it is out of their hands. And when people like Ryan can't control the story anymore, that's when their mask starts to slip. So no, I don't think they're getting divorced. I don't think it's over. I just think we're finally seeing who they really are, without the Hollywood filter. In the case involving Fed C, Blake Lively reportedly wrote a long emotional letter to both the court and the police. In that letter, she accused Fed C of doing things that were, according to several sources close to the situation, completely unfounded. Stories not supported by evidence or facts. These fantastical tales, as one observer called them, seemed convincing at first, but when the matter reached court and real evidence had to be presented, the case began to collapse. Eventually, when the trial came around and the Crown reviewed the actual materials, the case was dismissed. Blake and Ryan walked away quietly, without much accountability or public explanation. For many, that incident alone could have been enough pressure to make the couple reconsider their approach. But it didn't. Instead, Blake and Ryan appeared to double down, sticking to the same narrative and supporting each other through what multiple insiders now describe as layers of deception. Richard Fed, a longtime photographer who had covered the couple for years, claimed to have witnessed moments that showed their relationship wasn't as picture-perfect as it seemed. He reportedly observed Ryan treating Blake poorly in private settings, while also noting that Blake herself could be manipulative and emotionally volatile. According to Fed, she had a pattern of becoming emotionally attached to her male co-stars, a tendency that fueled Ryan's jealousy and anger behind closed doors. This dynamic, Fed suggested, created a toxic cycle. Blake's behavior on set would trigger Ryan's rage, and his controlling response would make her defensive and calculating. Yet despite the personal turmoil, the couple pressed forward with expensive legal battles, complex PR strategies, and public displays of unity. What's particularly striking about this phase of the saga is the enormous cost of litigation. Blake's legal team has reportedly issued dozens of subpoenas and filed extensive motions aimed at discrediting Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios, competitors in both creative and business spaces. Industry sources have suggested that while Blake is the public face of the lawsuit, Ryan is the one driving it behind the scenes, emotionally, strategically, and financially. A source connected to the financial circles around Ryan's marketing company, Mountain, revealed that Ryan's actions may have been influenced by business pressures. At the time, Mountain was preparing for an IPO, and Ryan's reputation as a master marketer was essential to the brand's success. However, his handling of promotional campaigns, especially those tied to It Ends With Us, had come under heavy scrutiny. The marketing missteps reportedly sparked concern among investors, who feared the controversies could affect the company's valuation. According to this source, Ryan viewed the lawsuit not as a fight for justice, but as damage control, an effort to preserve his public image and business interests. Spending millions on a high-profile legal battle in this context may have seemed like an acceptable price to protect his brand. Insiders argue that the entire narrative, including the accusations, the lawsuits, and the public moral stance, was a calculated move to redirect the conversation away from marketing failures and creative mismanagement. The controversy surrounding It Ends With Us, from its cross-promotion with Deadpool and Wolverine, to Blake's involvement in alcohol advertising and her silence on domestic violence themes, had triggered backlash online. Fans criticized the tone-deaf approach, the blurred lines between fiction and real-life behavior, and the awkward dynamic between Ryan and Blake in promotional appearances. At one point, Ryan even participated in a skit with Brandon Slinar that painted him as a jealous husband, a portrayal that unintentionally mirrored the domestic violence undertones of the film's story. The result was an avalanche of criticism that, according to observers, Ryan struggled to take responsibility for. Instead of acknowledging the marketing misfires, Ryan and his team reportedly leaned into a different narrative, that a smear campaign was being orchestrated against them. This, many now believe, became the foundation for their legal push against Baldoni and Wayfarer. But legal experts and entertainment insiders alike doubt the case will ever reach trial. The consensus among those following the proceedings closely is that the evidence simply doesn't exist to support the claims. Instead, they suspect the lawsuit serves another purpose: to delay, distract, and damage. The longer it drags on, the more pressure it exerts on Baldoni's team and Wayfarer Studios. Eventually, when the couple feels they've done enough, reputational harm or diverted enough attention, many predict they'll withdraw the case quietly. Richard Fedd, who has followed their pattern of behavior for years, put it bluntly in one of his interviews: "A leopard doesn't change its spots." According to Fedd, Ryan Reynolds operates with a clear pattern: aggressive, impulsive, and strategic to a fault. He described Ryan as someone who will do whatever it takes to get what he wants, without much concern for collateral damage. In Fedd's words, Ryan's the kind of person who keeps pushing until the game no longer benefits him. Then he just retreats, disappears, as if none of it ever happened. He added that Ryan's current actions, from fueling lawsuits to managing PR narratives, fit this pattern perfectly. Once it becomes clear the case won't yield the results they want, he believes Ryan and Blake will step back, leaving behind chaos and unanswered questions. And while the legal drama continues, there are whispers about deeper cracks in their marriage. Several insiders close to the couple have hinted that the stress of litigation, coupled with financial entanglements and image management, has taken a serious toll on their relationship. Sources describe Blake as someone living under significant control. Despite having her own income and fame, she reportedly depends heavily on Ryan to sustain the luxurious lifestyle they share, one that includes multiple properties, high-end travel, and extensive staff. While she could theoretically stand on her own financially, the life she wants, and the image that comes with it, would be difficult to maintain without Ryan's massive earnings and influence. It's unclear whether the couple signed a prenuptial agreement, but if they were to separate, Blake would likely receive spousal and child support. Still, with young children involved, sources say she's reluctant to take that step. Interestingly, even Fedd, who has criticized Ryan harshly, noted one redeeming factor: Ryan's devotion to his children. Despite describing him as manipulative and self-serving in other areas, Fedd said that Ryan genuinely loves his family and struggles with the idea of being separated from his kids. This emotional tie, he suggested, is one of the few things preventing a total collapse of the marriage. Still, the balance appears fragile. Those close to the situation describe a relationship held together more by image and necessity than love or trust. The couple's public persona, the charming banter, the social media jokes, the red carpet affection, masks what multiple sources claim is a controlling dynamic behind closed doors. For now, the lawsuit continues to unfold, but even the people closest to it believe it's not about justice. It's about power, perception, and control, the very things that seem to define both their careers and their marriage. And as one insider put it, the longer they cling to this illusion, the harder the eventual fall will be. It would be incredibly difficult for Ryan Reynolds to end his marriage, even if Blake Lively had become a liability to him. For someone as image-conscious as Ryan, walking away might feel like failure, and failure isn't something he tolerates easily. Instead, sources suggest he might prefer to destroy Blake's career completely rather than divorce her. That way, he could remain the dominant figure, the one in control, while Blake is reduced to a supporting role, not just in public, but in life. This perspective paints a dark picture of the couple's dynamic. Ryan's alleged actions appear to serve two purposes. First, to inflict as much damage as possible on Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios, and second, to undermine Blake's own position in Hollywood. If he could make her career implode, he wouldn't have to compete with her anymore. She would simply become Ryan Reynolds' wife, the role his mother reportedly always wanted for her. People close to the couple say that Ryan's mother never approved of him marrying an actress. She wanted him to settle down with someone quiet, supportive, and homebound, not a woman with ambitions and her own spotlight. For years, there have been whispers that Ryan resented Blake's career aspirations. And in the eyes of some, this lawsuit accomplishes exactly what he's always wanted. It harms her reputation, alienates her from powerful industry allies, and makes her a pariah in the business. Observers familiar with abusive relationship patterns have pointed out that what Ryan is accused of doing fits a common cycle seen among controlling partners: sabotage. Domestic abusers, psychologists note, often try to isolate or destroy their partner's independence, success, or self-esteem to maintain power. In this case, Ryan allegedly uses public manipulation and legal warfare instead of physical violence. The result, however, is similar: control through chaos. The tragic irony, according to insiders, is that if Blake weren't as self-absorbed and image-focused as she appears to be, she might recognize the toxicity of her marriage. But those close to her say she doesn't see it. She's reportedly too caught up in her own narrative, too convinced of her own version of events, to realize she might also be a victim of Ryan's control. That doesn't make her innocent, though. Multiple sources describe Blake as equally manipulative in her own ways, calculating, emotionally reactive, and fiercely protective of her brand. Together, the couple seems locked in a cycle of mutual exploitation. He uses power and control, she uses image and sympathy. Neither, it seems, has the ability to admit when they're wrong or take accountability. To both of them, whatever means necessary isn't a last resort, it's a strategy. If their marriage were to end, several people who've followed the situation closely believe it wouldn't be Ryan who files for divorce. Despite his dominance, Ryan reportedly depends on maintaining the family image he's built. Ending the marriage would shatter the carefully curated persona of the devoted husband and father, an image that's worth millions in both brand deals and public goodwill. Blake, on the other hand, might eventually reach a breaking point. Insiders speculate that if divorce happens, it'll be because she finally grows exhausted with Ryan's verbal attacks and emotional control. They say his pattern of belittling her, undermining her confidence, and dominating conversations has become unbearable. Interestingly, Ryan's alleged behavior toward his ex-wife, Scarlett Johansson, mirrors the same controlling tendencies. Sources close to that earlier relationship claimed he struggled with Scarlett's success and independence. The same pattern seems to be repeating with Blake. When his partner thrives, he feels threatened. When she struggles, he feels secure. That dynamic, jealousy disguised as protectiveness, control masked as love, appears to define their marriage. Ryan reportedly prefers Blake to be dependent, uncertain, and deferential. Success makes her harder to control, and he can't tolerate competition, especially not within his own home. So are they on the verge of a split? According to those close to the couple, probably not yet. But are they fighting? Absolutely. Sources describe constant tension, frequent arguments, and a relationship that's more transactional than emotional at this point. The only difference now is that the public can finally see through the illusion. Their marriage, once painted as playful, charming, and aspirational, has been stripped bare. What remains looks more like a strategic partnership built on control, resentment, and image management than love or mutual respect. So yes, they're fighting. They've likely been fighting for a long time. The only thing that's changed is that the rest of the world is starting to see what's really been going on all along, and that's where things stand for now. What once looked like Hollywood's golden couple might actually be trapped in a toxic power struggle, one built on control, ego, and public image. As the legal battles and PR wars continue to unfold, it's becoming harder and harder to separate truth from performance. But one thing is clear: the cracks in their perfect marriage are no longer invisible. Whether this ends in reconciliation, exposure, or a quiet retreat from the spotlight, both Blake and Ryan are facing the consequences of years of manipulation and denial finally catching up to them. What do you think, besties? Is this just another celebrity PR storm? Or is the truth about to explode? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell turned on, so you never miss the next update as this story continues to unfold. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, besties.